Delta loop antenna is of course not a beginner's antenna, and it is not easy to have it up for everyone. I am not using a delta loop antenna. One of my friends in the US is using it. He has a little more space in the compound and he has trees in the compound as well. Delta is the shape of the Greek alphabet delta. A delta loop is almost like an equilateral triangle. You can have it mounted in different ways, horizontal, vertical. My friend in the US is using a vertical delta loop antenna, and the feed point could be either at the lower part or upper part, depending on what your circumstances. My friend in the US is using it with the feed point in the lower part. Two sides of the delta he has tied to two trees in the compound, and he has used a pulley-like mechanism so that the upper portion of the delta is always horizontal. On both sides you have pulleys so that the central portion of the delta will be taut, and it will be just like a real delta without sagging. And the lower part, when the two limbs are brought down, you need a balun, because the impedance is different for a delta loop antenna compared to the usual dipole antenna. In dipole antenna, you use 1:1 current balun. But for delta loop antenna, you need 4:1 balun. That is what is used for delta loop antenna. The advantage they say is that delta loop antenna it also has directivity along the sides, the signals. Suppose this is the delta loop antenna, signals will go in this way, just like the usual dipole antenna. An advantage of delta loop which is mentioned is that low noise level. In my radio, a basic noise level on 40 meter is S9 most of the time. Past few days I have been lucky to have lower noise floor of S3, but usually it is S9. That means any signal below S9 will not be audible. So I am ending up working only the more powerful local stations. But if the noise level is low, maybe S3, then I can hear even weaker stations. That is the thing in my 10 meter band. In 10 meter band, I have a low noise level of about 3. So that I am able to get DX stations even if they are S7 or S6. And in fact, I work DX mostly on 10 meter. So I was telling that just to say the lower noise level in different bands. And what my friend says is that the delta loop antenna is getting a lower noise level, and it's a quieter antenna compared to a dipole antenna. Instead of using a 4:1 balun at feed point, a quarter wavelength matching section of 75 ohms coax can be used. The matching section is needed as the impedance of delta loop antenna is around 100 ohms. While I was contacting a friend at about 2500 km from here on 21 MHz, he told me that he was using a 20 meter delta loop antenna, and it works on multiple bands even without a tuner, and I was quite surprised. Another friend on the other side of the globe told me online that his 40 meter delta loop antenna works on higher non-WARC bands with reasonable SWR. Wanted to know more about the multi-band capability of delta loop antenna. My Google search immediately brought me to a 40 to 10 meter multi-band delta loop antenna. Supplier of one commercially available multi-band 40 to 10 meter delta loop antenna has mentioned that it cannot be operated by a coaxial cable. Any parallel wire feeder can be used to operate on 7 bands using a tuner. They have also mentioned that best results are achieved with a symmetric tuner, but any other tuner with a balun also works well. Others have used coaxial cable with 4:1 balun for multi-band operation. There are also descriptions of shortened delta loop antennas for those with space constraints. Commercial options for 3.5 to 54 MHz and kilowatt range rotatable ones could be seen as mentioned online. If the delta loop is mounted vertically, the low takeoff angle of electromagnetic waves is good for working distance stations. If mounted horizontally, it is useful as near vertical incidence sky wave (NVIS) propagation for medium range communications in amateur radio, especially in hilly terrain, forest region, and even in cities with high-rise buildings. Radiation pattern of the delta loop antenna is along its broadside. Directional gain of the delta loop antenna can be increased by adding elements just as in Yagi-Uda antenna. They have higher gain than a Yagi antenna with the same number of elements, up to 5 to 6 elements. I saw a Twitter post of 2-element 10-meter delta loop antenna. The reflector element was bigger than the driven element and the boom length was 2 meters. It was fed at the bottom corner. If a side corner is fed, delta loop antennas can be made with only a single high support. Otherwise, it needs 2 tall supports in the usual pattern. Low takeoff angle of the main lobe of radiation makes it a good antenna for long distance or DX contacts. Signals with low angle are bounced back by the ionosphere at a larger distance. Another advantage cited for multi-element delta loop antenna is that compared to a Yagi antenna of same gain, it has a wider beam width. This could be an important advantage for working DX as well as contests.